Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markowitz, and today we're getting an update from West Red Lake Gold Mines. West Red Lake Gold Mines is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker WRLG and on the OTCQB under the ticker WRLGF. And I'm joined today with the Vice President of Communications for West Red Lake Gold Mines, Gwen Preston. Gwen, it's great to get you back on the show, and it hasn't been that long since we chatted last, just at the very end of last month. And we wanted to get you on to unpack the positive bulk sample reconciliation results that you put out to the market on May 7th, today, as we record this. And I was impressed to see that as far as the grade that was expected and the grade that actually came out, you actually did a little bit better than expected, but it was in line with the study. You produced 2,498 ounces of gold out of 14,490 tons of bulk sample, and the average Madsen mill recovery was about 95%, which is really good on anybody's book. So let's get into the nitty gritty here on this study. But as far as what you saw and what was expected, how does the company feel about the bulk sample?
Thanks for having me back on. This is a big news day for us. This bulk sample is our first opportunity to show the investors, the market, that everything we've said about our approach to the Madsen mine, that if we do the right geologic work, if we do the right engineering work, if we're good miners, that it can unlock the value in this asset. This was our first opportunity to provide proof of that. And as a team, we are incredibly happy with the results. I mean, for expected and actual tons and grade to align this closely in a red lake gold system, where, I mean, the nature of the beast here is that it's a nuggety, narrow vein, high grade gold system. To get this kind of alignment is just, it's so satisfying. And I think that one of the best captures that I ended up speaking to earlier this morning that I really liked is that we got these results, and what they mean is that we change nothing in our workflow. All the workflow that we have laid out about how we do the definition drilling, how we incorporate those results, update the in-house model, design the stopes, start getting into the stopes, sample, start mining, sample. Through all of that sampling, you continue to go back and update the model, make sure the stope engineering is perfect. That workflow, we love it because it generated these results, and these results are exactly what we want. We want things to line up perfectly. So yeah, we're really, really happy with these results.
Well, let's just remind people that the results came from really three areas of the resource. This was at the Austin, the South Austin, and the McVeigh zone. Historically, Pure Gold, the prior operator, was really mostly pulling from McVeigh. So this is the first time you've had kind of three areas factor into it. And you do have other areas you could also, in the future, pull from North Austin and then possibly drift over to Fork as even a fifth area. But just from the three areas that you did produce this bulk sample from, I saw some comments, Gwen, that saying, well, they probably just cherry picked the best parts. And to the point you just made, you mined this exactly the same way that you would in a mining scenario. So maybe speak to the point that you weren't cherry picking here. You were trying to get a real representative sample.
Yeah, I mean, the way that we approached the Madsen project, we didn't approach the project from, okay, let's prioritize bringing the best areas to the front of our mine plan so that we can do a good bulk sample news release. We approached the project from, okay, let's dive in and build a detailed 18-month mineral inventory, right? So that's a detailed engineered mine plan that covers tons, into which the definition drilling has been done, and where we have a plan for how we're going to drive the access over to those areas, how we're going to mine them. You always want to have that 18-month mine plan ahead of you. That's the work that we've been doing. And the areas that we did for the bulk sample were the areas that were at the front of that mine plan, which has more to do with the areas that we have good access to, or that we had good access to, let me be clear, 6 months ago, when we very slowly started the mining process here. And that's pretty important because in the last 6 months, we've done hundreds and hundreds of meters of development to access different areas. If we were starting a bulk sample right now, we would have more areas to choose from, and perhaps we could have maybe cherry picked some areas with different grades or tonnages or whatever we wanted to demonstrate. But we basically had to mine the areas that we had access to 6 months ago, which was a long time ago in the context of getting access to different parts of this deposit. So no, this wasn't structured to try and highlight the strengths of Madsen. The purpose of the bulk sample was truly to show that our approach to Madsen works. That was our fundamental goal here. And so that's why we're so satisfied with it. And when I say we started 6 months ago, it's not that, I mean, it took a long time to mine 15,000 tons because we started extremely slowly. 6 months ago, we hardly had any miners on staff, right? We had enough mining staff just to drive new tunnels to give us access to places for definition drilling. So in the 6 months that we mined these 15,000 tons is when we've ramped up the entire operations ability to do mining. And that's been an incredibly valuable process, from onboarding people, making sure that our miners are operating safely and accurately, and then increasingly efficiently, starting up the mill, working out all the kinks. There's always going to be kinks when you start doing these complicated things, working out all the kinks, realizing what problems are, figuring out solutions to them. It's been a huge host of work that we've done to get to this point that we believe has put us on a way stronger footing right now as we step into production than we would be if we were starting from zero, if we hadn't done the bulk sample. So the bulk sample was to show that the process works and to get us really ready to step into operations more smoothly.
Yeah, I think that's well put. In addition to being a proof of concept, it was also doing real world mining activity with the staff and ramping up the team and ramping up experience, and also just getting a better understanding of what mining is going to look like. So, an incredibly valuable experience. Another topic that seems to be resonating is something we brought up on the show here with you, I think the last interview or two, that because of the price of gold being where it is today, it allows you to look at mining this slightly differently than originally envisioned in the pre-feasibility study. That was back at a price of gold when I think it was 1680 per ounce. Obviously, gold's about double that now. So you're now looking at utilizing long hole stoping instead of just the cut and fill method. And so a lot of people have questions about that. But the idea, and maybe you can unpack this for us, Gwen, is that you can now grab some material that before may not have been as economic, but at today's gold price, it definitely is. And this also lowers the overall cost because long hole stoping allows you just to go grab a whole stope and then open up what's behind it, as opposed to trying to be more selective with cut and fill. So that brings the cost down. It makes it easier to mine. Could you unpack this topic a little bit more, though? Because there's a lot of questions and comments about the idea to move from cut and fill to more long hole stoping.
Absolutely. This is going to be a big conversation that we will have over the next year, whatever, as we ramp this operation up and everyone gets familiar with what Madsen actually is. And what it really starts with, the reason that that the reality is a little bit different than the PFS mine plan, is simply because when the PFS was done, they chose a gold price. And they chose a gold price of $1,680, which was a historic, like a 3-year trailing average gold price. And they used that gold price as the first hurdle. And by that, I mean, the resources, if you applied just an initial basic mining cost on the tons of the resource, they had to make sense to mine at a gold price of $1,680, which is, of course, a pretty conservative gold price now. And the result of that low gold price, call it a high hurdle for the resource tons, is that it created a mine plan that focused only on the highest grade parts of the Madsen deposit. And so that mine plan worked, right? The PFS is economic. It was the basis of our decision to proceed. It makes money. It works. But when gold is actually worth quite a bit more than that, then you get into, okay, so you always do a pre-feasibility study or a feasibility study, and that takes your mine plan to a certain level of detail. Then there's always a process after that where you incorporate the rest of the definition drilling and your engineers create your detailed mine engineering. For in the case of an underground mine, your detailed stope design. And that detailed stope design process, that's an economic process. Of course, there's geotechnical in there and it's based on a geology model, obviously. But at the end of the day, the shape of each stope is determined by maximum economic benefit, right? And so you use a gold price in that. And the comment that we included in this news release is letting people understand that we're not using a $1,680 gold price when our engineers are using profitability to drive how we design our stopes. We're using something that's closer to the long-term consensus gold price, which is 2,350. We're actually a bit shy of that because you leave lots of buffer room relative to the spot price. But when you use a price of more like $2,200 or $2,300 gold, then the halo of mineralization, lower grade mineralization that's around those really high grade lenses that were part of the mine plan, those lower grade tons that are adjacent, they become profitable. In some cases, very nicely profitable because you've already spent the money to get into those areas to mine those high grade lenses. When you're in there, you might as well also mine the profitable lower grade tons that are directly adjacent to the spot that you were already operating. And then, as you so clearly explained, when you do that, and you therefore have a bigger stope, you can do it with long hole mining instead of cut and fill. And long hole mining is 50% the mining cost of cut and fill. You can just take bigger stopes and therefore it costs less. That's the simple version of the story. And so lower mining costs are obviously really important, and we're mining additional tons because they're profitable. And so that's the essence of the shift. It both is and isn't a dramatic shift. But we wanted to open the door on that conversation so people understand that, we're mining Madsen to make as much money as possible. That's how engineers design the stopes. That is making for a mine plan that pulls more meat off the bone than the PFS actually outlined.
Well, I appreciated you opening the door even wider on the conversation, Gwen, because I think it's an important point. And it also is highlighted by the fact that the environment has changed in the gold price. If we were still at 1680 gold, it'd be a different conversation. But bringing in that lower grade material and the halo around the mineralization makes it easier to mine. If the costs are dropping by about 50% for just the mining cost, I don't know what exactly that translates over into the all-in sustaining cost, but it's got to help. It's going to be a lower cost process and a more efficient process. So that's the takeaway for people. But now there's people even more than ever, Gwen, chomping at the bit about, okay, so when does mining start? And I've seen comments, when do they start making money? So maybe explain to people this is a process. It's going to be a ramp up process. What are the next steps? And then I guess the plan is as you put more ore into the mill over the course of this year, maybe by the end of the year, you could make a commercial production decision. But just give people a lay of the land of what to expect for the balance of the year.
Absolutely, for sure. And so you're right. The goal is that at the end of the year, to be in a position to declare commercial production. The way that we get there is the process of ramp up. And we needed to finish this bulk sample, get these numbers back, and deliver these numbers to our board of directors. And then we certainly expect that our board of directors will accept management's recommended plan that, this validates everything and now it's time to turn the mine on. And so we've always said that we want to turn this mine on before the middle of 2025. And it's now May 7th. And so that is not very long from now. And so we do expect in the coming weeks to be able to, make an announcement that that's happening, that we're turning this mine on. And turning the mine on means probably starting at about 600 tons per day and then just doing a ramp up to 800 tons per day over the coming months. And that's just the pace that you do it at. This is a process. Like I said, we went from 6 months ago mining very, very slowly as we started the bulk sample to now mining, and we are confident that we can mine at a 600 ton per day pace. And so we need to just continue that ramp up process and get ourselves to 800 tons per day. And that's our first goal as a mining company, is to get to 800 tons per day and then see where we might go from there. So yeah, that's the process. And it's literally right around the corner, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, and it seems like this bulk sample is really the last major milestone the company needed to complete to be able to make that decision to move into the ramp up process and then eventually by the end of the year the commercial production. So we'll keep tabs on that. One final question, Gwen, as people are wondering, do you have to raise any more money to get this mine into production? And I just want to remind people that in addition to this bulk sample being educational, it should also be profitable. So just maybe remind people that you'll have money coming in from the gold sales.
Yeah, for sure. So we did, as noted in the bulk sample, we produced 2,498 ounces of gold, which is a nice number of ounces of gold, especially given that the gold price just did wonderful things while we mined this bulk sample. And you can expect a news release soon that shows how much of that I mean, obviously we sold that gold. There's a last little bit. The exact number is yet to be quite finalized because it's our first time selling gold to the refinery. So there's quite a few independent assays of the purity of the doré bar that take a little bit of time. So essentially we've sold 95% about of that gold now, and the last 5% we still need to settle out based on the results of those independent assays. But we're going to put out a news release very soon that shows that we made, you can estimate about the amount that we made, and I will name that amount in a news release very shortly. So yeah, for sure, that really helps. And then we do still have the 12.5 million US available from the Namari credit facility that is as yet undrawn. And so, yes, we do have the capital that we need to get this mine into production. That is not raising capital to get to that key goal has been a fundamental driver in this office and at the mine site for many, many months now. So yeah, we're almost there.
Well, we're going to keep following along here with the KE report because it's an exciting time for the company. So we'll wait to see what you made on your gold haul out of the bulk sample. We'll watch to see when the mine plan and decision to move forward with production commences. And then it should be an exciting year for the balance of 2025 for the company as you ramp up into production. Definitely a lot of news flow on tap from West Red Lake Gold Mines. So for those listening in, if you want to follow along with that news flow, click on the link below in the show notes. Takes you over to the company website, straight to their news section where you can sign up for updates, have them hit your inbox, or just follow along with the news as it drops to the market. Gwen, thanks for coming on the day of the bulk sample to unpack this for us. I really appreciate your time, and fingers crossed here as you guys move forward to the next chapter in West Red Lake Gold Mine into a full producing company.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the well wishes, and it was great to chat with you today. It's been a really big day, and so excited to get this news out.